Debuting on Cinemax in early 2013, Banshee made a name for itself within its admittedly limited audience, boasting an entertaining ensemble cast of characters with solid performances and impressive action set pieces for a television show. Banshee ran for 4 seasons, receiving critical praise and drawing record numbers for the Cinemax network. I'll admit, the only reason I watched the show initially was because I saw that Anthony Starr played the main character, and I'm a big fan of his performance as Homelander in The Boys. So I gave Banshee a watch, and now it's officially one of my favorite TV shows ever. Let's talk about why.
You're not built for downtime, are you? The way you move, the way you pace.
What are you doing here?
The way you want to push through every wall without even looking for the door or the key to that door.
You have a point?
Procedure, protocols, laws, you just don't have patience for any of it.
That's not the temperament of a man who worked his way up through law enforcement. Put my feet to the fire, I'd say you're more criminal than cop.
You don't know me. Hi, Anna.
Banshee opens up like your typical action TV show. Our unnamed protagonist gets out of prison, fucks a bartender, and steals a car to meet up with an old associate of his. This associate is Job, a cross-dressing hairstylist that moonlights as a criminal hacker. Our protagonist demands that Job gives him the address of his former lover, Anna. Job takes some convincing, but eventually caves, giving up the address. Turns out our main character was in prison for 15 years after being arrested during a botched diamond heist, in which his lover, Anna, was the only person to get away, and she did so with the diamonds in tow. After leaving Job's salon, the main character is attacked by a couple of Russian mobsters in one of the most insane foot chases I think I've seen in a TV show, not to mention some classy product placement. But eventually, he manages to steal a bike and get away. You see, the diamonds that the main character and Anna stole belong to a Russian mobster known as Rabbit, who, coincidentally, is Anna's father. So, Rabbit obviously knows that the main character is out of prison and is trying to track down him, Anna, and the diamonds. Our main character arrives in Banshee, Pennsylvania. He goes to the address given by Job, and he finds Anna. Only, Anna isn't Anna anymore. She goes by Carrie, she has a husband, and 2 children, one of them clearly in their teens. Anna has seemingly moved on, and she did so a long time ago. This breaks our main character's heart. You can see the rage, the pain, and the sadness bubbling beneath the surface, and you can see that he's trying to hold it all back. He demands his share of the diamond heist, but Anna says she doesn't have them, explaining that she was robbed and they were lost years ago. The main character leaves, broken and alone, before stopping at a small bar on the edge of town. As he walks in, he notices an unfinished steak. There's another unseen patron at this establishment. He pays no mind to that as he takes a seat and is greeted by the bar's owner, Sugar, a former boxer well out of his prime and a convicted felon himself. He quickly realizes that our main character is also an ex-con. The two have a comforting chat before the other patron returns to his meal, remarking how he's the new sheriff of Banshee. His name is Lucas Hood. Just then, 2 thugs stroll into the bar and attempt to rob Sugar. Hood gets in over his head, drawing his gun on the perpetrators only for them to do the same, resulting in a Mexican standoff of sorts. Our main character attempts to intervene, trying to talk down Hood and the thugs, but it proves pointless. Hood tries to make a move and gets himself killed, leaving the main character to dispatch the thugs. Quite brutally, to be honest, shanking one to death with a steak knife and shoving a bottle of ketchup down the other's throat. The main character and Sugar realize that 3 dead bodies, 2 ex-cons, and no witnesses doesn't exactly look favorable legally, so they proceed to bury the thugs and the sheriff in the woods. While burying them, Hood's phone begins to ring, and our main character has a clever idea enter his mind. He answers the phone, introducing himself as Lucas Hood. From here, our main character successfully impersonates Hood, becoming the new sheriff of Banshee, Pennsylvania, thanks to some clever work from Job, of course. And as the story unfolds, he unravels the dark, twisted web of secrets, crime, and debauchery that surrounds and engulfs Banshee. The show I would most readily compare Banshee to is Black Lagoon. Inasmuch as I think at first glance, most viewers would dismiss the show for being overly violent, needlessly sexualized pulp for the sake of mindless entertainment. But for those who take the time to actually watch the show, you are rewarded with deep characters, a fascinating setting, and excellent performances, not to mention one of the best soundtracks put to TV. Lucas Hood is an all-around excellent protagonist. At first, he seems like the typical bad boy with a heart of gold, but as the show goes on, it reveals Hood to be a traumatized, broken man trying desperately to cling to anything to keep him from falling off the edge. Anthony Starr plays this character beautifully. His work here is a lot more understated than his portrayal of Homelander, but for that reason, I find it to be much more effective. The series antagonist, Kai Proctor, played by Ulrich Thompson, who some might recognize as that one asshole from the Thing prequel, is also just as compelling. The formerly Amish criminal businessman is at first simply depicted as an eccentric crime lord who has the whole town in his pocket. As the show goes on, it quickly becomes apparent that he and Hood are not too much different. They are both broken men who feel empty without those they care for, and the only real difference is that Hood is trying desperately not to lose himself, whereas Kai already has. This is what makes their interactions throughout the show so fascinating to watch, and they honestly are some of the best moments in the show. Even Anna, played by Ivana Milikovic, there is no way I pronounced that correctly, is an extremely well-developed character. She's not your typical damsel in distress, nor is she a Mary Sue. She's a complex character who just has a lot going on, and it's handled perfectly from a writing perspective, with a lot of her scenes with Hood, especially early on, being a big highlight of the show. In fact, this show does an all-around excellent job at writing believable, strong female characters without making it too on the nose, which is a trope that I think a lot of even really good shows fall short of. Like, as much as I enjoyed the first season of Reacher, this scene was completely unnecessary.
When a woman says she doesn't want to be touched, she doesn't want to be touched.
Banshee never has moments like that. You know the female characters are badass because you see them doing badass shit, and it doesn't beat you over the head with some forced political stance. The title of this video is an abbreviated version of a phrase spoken by a character that is introduced in the 3rd season. This character is Kurt Bunker. This character is so utterly fascinating and perfectly written that I could honestly make an entire video just about him. Portrayed by Tom Pelphrey, Bunker is a reformed neo-Nazi who is trying to be a better man than he used to be, all the while trying to tie up loose ends with the white supremacists that he used to call friends and family. He's brought onto Banshee's Sheriff's Department by Hood and becomes an integral part of the show's cast moving forward. He's still covered in the sickening tattoos that he's been unable to get removed due to their unsettling nature, and he does everything he can to make up for his appearance and what it implies. He's incredibly kind, respectful, and patient with nearly everyone he meets, all the while having seemingly nothing but contempt for himself. In every scene with him, you can see the shame and guilt in his eyes, that of which he makes no attempt to excuse. Bunker knows what kind of monster he used to be and is trying to be better, but he knows that at the end of the day, he'll always be that same monster. Bunker's story doesn't really intersect with any of our main characters, especially not in season 4, he's basically doing his own thing, but he's still an integral part of the show. The musical score for the show, composed and performed by a group known as Methodic Doubt, is an excellent display of electronic rock that perfectly encapsulates the mood and atmosphere of the show's over-the-top, yet oppressive and contemplative themes. The opening titles for the show being a standout track. It's booming with intensity and implies an haunting, somber undertone with its graceful, hard-edged melodies. There's a lot to love about Banshee, but let's move on to some of the things that I don't think work that well. The action throughout the show is good, but I'll admit that it has the same problem as something like Black Lagoon in a lot of instances, meaning that some of the violence is so brutally real that I caught myself physically cringing. Seriously, we're talking last 3 episodes of Netflix's The Punisher levels of brutality, whereas other action sequences, namely a lot of the show's bigger set pieces, are absolutely ridiculous. I mean, in season 3, 2 people are able to successfully assault a fucking military base. But overall, it is still well produced, and the show doesn't really make an attempt to be low-key. It's all very over the top. And I will admit, the sex scenes in the show are usually a bit too much. Like in the first season, there's an extended scene where Anna is getting eaten out by her husband while thinking about Hood. Look, I get that it serves the story and it establishes that she clearly still has feelings for Hood, but I really didn't need to watch 4 minutes of Ivana Malikovic getting head, you know what I mean? And yeah, unfortunately there's a lot of scenes like that throughout the show, especially in the first 2 seasons. They kinda chill out in seasons 3 and 4, but it never quite stops. Overall, Banshee is just a great series. Sure, it's not perfect, but what it gets right, it absolutely blew my expectations out of the water. If you haven't watched it yet, I highly recommend it.
The past has kept you locked up long enough. Today, there's really only one question left to ask yourself. What are you going